long time ago in the quiet corner of the galaxy, a small planet named Virelin called out for help. Its skies had turned black with smoke, and the stars above were hidden behind the wreckage of burning ships. Its people peaceful, trusting had never known war. They believed the Galactic Council would protect them. That's what the Council promised long ago. But days passed, then weeks, and still, no help came. The enemy was ruthless, strange. Machines fell from the sky, destroying cities without warning. No reason was given, no demands were made. The attackers simply wanted Virelin gone. Their weapons were silent, cold, and terrifying. The people had nothing to fight back with. They only had one thing left, hope. From a small hidden station deep under the mountains, an old scientist sent a final message to the Galactic Council. His voice trembled. "We beg you, anyone, please help us. We're not soldiers. We're quart, not enemies. We just want to live." The message echoed through space, but the council heard it and looked away. Virelin, they said, was too small to protect. Sending help would be a waste of resources. "Let them fall," said one council member coldly. "They are not important enough." But there was one group the council didn't speak to, one planet they feared too much to even mention. Earth. Earth was known by another name, in secret circles, the Death World, a place where even the plants could kill, where storms tore cities, a part where life had learned to fight harder than anywhere else. The beings from Earth, humans, were different. They were dangerous, wild, unpredictable, not because they loved war, but because they never backed down from it. Long ago, Earth was offered a seat on the council. They refused. Since then, they stayed quiet, watching from the shadows. The other species warned each other, "Never call the Deathworlders unless you truly want them to come now." With no one left to ask, the old scientist turned to his last option. His hands shaking, he whispered to the machine, "Send it to Earth." The message traveled far, past stars, frozen planets, and dead moons. It reached an old Earth satellite, one not used in years. And somehow, it was received. Earth didn't answer right away. Hours passed. Then, a day, the people of Virelin waited, hearts heavy. Maybe they were truly alone. Maybe even Earth didn't care. Then, just before the second nightfall, the sky lit up. A single message arrived. It didn't say much, only 5 words. Coordinates received. "We are coming." The council noticed this transmission. Their chambers fell silent. A few whispered in panic. They answered. On Virelin, no one slept that night. Families gathered outside, watching the sky, hoping, fearing, wondering what a Deathworlder looked like. Was it true they had metal in their bones? Was it true they fought even when wounded? Stories were all they had. Stories and fear. On the second morning, the sun was blocked by a shadow. Not a fleet, not an army, just one ship. But it didn't look like any ship they had seen. It moved quietly, like a hunter in the dark. Black panels, no lights, no noise. The people held their breath. The ship landed near the mountains. No weapons fired. No words were spoken. Then the door opened. One figure stepped out. A human, not large, not glowing. Just a person in dark armor, face calm, eyes unreadable. He looked around at the broken land, walked forward. Quiet, slow, confident, not a single weapon in his hand. The people didn't know what to say. Was this their savior? Just one person? But something strange happened. The enemy, who had watched everything from the sky, suddenly changed course. Their ships pulled away. Their machines stopped moving. Their signals went quiet. They had seen who arrived, and they wanted no part of it. Back on the council, one frightened leader whispered, "We should have never ignored the signal. Now, Earth is awake." The camera on Virelin caught the moment the human looked at the sky and spoke into his small communicator. "We're here. Begin the descent." The sky began to darken again, not from smoke, but from more ships. Coming fast, and they weren't just from Earth. They were from every human colony, across the stars, because someone had asked the Deathworlders for help, and when they come, they never come alone. The people of Virelin gathered in silence, their eyes fixed on the figure who had stepped out of the strange dark ship. He looked nothing like the stories they had heard. He didn't roar. He didn't shine with power. He didn't even carry a weapon in his hands. He simply walked, one step at a time, across the ruined ground, calm, focused, like he had done this before. Children peeked from behind rubble. Elders whispered among themselves. Some didn't know if they should be scared or relieved. This was a human, a real one, from Earth, a Deathworlder. He stopped near a broken statue in the center of the city. His eyes scanned the area, not with fear, not with emotion, only purpose. He took out a small device from his wrist, pressed something, and waited. It beeped once. Then, silence. Then, the sky changed. It began as a low hum, almost like wind moving through the trees. Then it grew louder. People looked up. What they saw made them forget to breathe. Lights. Many of them, moving in patterns through the clouds. First 1, then 5, then 10 ships, all different shapes and sizes. All flying in perfect formation. Some were round, some sharp like arrows, others long like shadows. But they all moved together, as if answering a silent call. The man who had arrived first did not smile. He simply nodded, as if everything was going exactly as planned. The people Aviralan looked at each other, unsure what to do. One young woman stepped forward and asked, "Why are you here? Why did you come?" The man looked at her, his voice calm and steady. "Because you asked." The woman blinked. "That's it, we asked, and you came." He paused. No one should be alone when they call for help, not in this galaxy. Above, more ships began to arrive. Some didn't even look human. Their colors were different. Their engines had strange sounds. But each of them had a symbol painted on the side, a simple blue circle with a white line through it. It was the mark of the Earth Alliance, and it was growing dot in the council chambers across the stars. The leaders of the galaxy watched the footage with disbelief. They answered with this much force, one whispered, "For one planet." An older council member leaned forward, eyes cold. "No, this is not just about Viralan. This is about a message. Earth is sending a message." Back on Viralan, the humans began setting up strange machines. Towers, shields, drones, but they didn't take over. They worked quietly, side by side with the people, teaching, repairing, listening. One human engineer showed a Viralan child how to power a light using solar energy. The child smiled for the first time in weeks. At night, the humans built a protective wall around the capital, not to keep anyone inside but to keep something out. The enemy ships that had once circled above were now gone, disappeared, as if they had seen the new arrivals and decided to vanish without a fight. One elder said softly, "They didn't just come with ships, they came with silence. And silence is what our enemies left behind." A few dared to speak with the humans more directly. They asked, "Are you here to rule us?" The human answered gently, "No, we're here because someone asked for help, and where we come from. That means something." Each hour more ships landed. Some brought food, others brought doctors, some carried strange devices that could rebuild homes in minutes. One ship even brought a tree from Earth and planted it in the middle of the ruined park, a symbol of life growing again, in the nearby mountains. The first human who arrived stood alone, watching, waiting. Another human approached him. "The council is watching." "I know," he said. "What if they react?" The man didn't look away from the sky. "Let them, we're not hiding." The other nodded. The signal worked. Every fleet is coming. And they were. Ships from Mars, colonies from Alpha Centauri, stations from the edge of space, all sending one reply, "We're coming too." Not for war, not for power, but for one simple reason. Because when someone asks Earth for help, they remember. And when Earth remembers, the galaxy does too. Asterisk, the sun had just begun to rise over the broken lands of Viralan, painting the sky in soft orange and purple streaks. When the sound of hundreds of engines hummed gently through the clouds, the people gathered once again, eyes full of wonder and quiet fear. It had only been a few days since the first human arrived. Now the sky above their world was filled with ships. Ships of every size, shape, and design, all bearing the same symbol. No flags, no demands, just quiet purpose. The air felt different now, not just safer but heavier, like something larger was unfolding. Something much bigger than just a rescue. Something the galaxy would not forget. The children were the first to run out to the new arrivals, their small feet splashing in puddles left by last night's rain. They waved at the strange machines that hovered above the ground. The machines responded gently, flashing soft lights and lowering small packages of food, medicine, and clothing. The adults watched, still unsure. Why had Earth responded so strongly? Why did a simple request for help bring so many ships, so many people, from so far away? In the central square, the humans were already rebuilding. They worked fast, too fast for ordinary hands. Their tools didn't just cut or shape, they reformed materials from the air itself. Walls rose from ash. Lights flickered on from broken wires. The humans barely spoke, but they communicated through actions, through plans, through silent understanding. A Viralone teacher named Rawl approached one of them, a woman with sharp eyes and a long braid. "We don't understand. Why send so many? Why risk so much for us?" She looked at him for a long time before replying, "Because someone has to, but we are not important." She smiled softly. To Earth, everyone who asks for help is important, especially the forgotten ones. The council watched from far away, screens glowing with images of human activity on Viralan. One by one, their advisors gave warnings. If Earth keeps expanding like this, they'll become too powerful. This is not charity, this is influence. They're building something, and we don't know what. But deep inside, they knew the truth. Earth had not forced anyone. Earth had simply shown up when no one else did. And that, more than anything, scared them. One council member said, "They are not using weapons, yet they are winning. The people trust them." Back on Viralan, the first human, the silent one who arrived before all others, stood on the high ridge. Below him, 100 new lights blinked across the rebuilt city. His communicator buzzed softly. Status, a voice asked. He answered, "Stabilized. Power grids, online. First wave of aid delivered, second wave approaching orbit now." Another voice broke in, this one younger. "Why didn't the council help them? They chose not to see. And we don't choose. We remember." As night fell, the stars were blocked again, but this time by larger shadows. These were not just Earth ships. These came from human colonies, far from Sol. Some bore languages not even known on Earth anymore, yet here they were, answering the same signal. Each ship carried something different. One carried doctors, another, engineers. One had nothing but seeds, food from Earth's deep forests and deserts, ready to be grown in Virulon's soil. Others carried translators, historians, builders, artists. It was not an army, it was a community. The people of Virulon began to feel something they hadn't felt since before the attack. Hope. Not the kind that fades in fear, but the kind that grows quietly when hands are offered, not fists. One child asked their mother, "Are they going to stay?" The mother didn't know. But she looked at the humans setting up shelters for the homeless, clinics for the wounded, and libraries for those who had lost their past, and she whispered, "Maybe not forever, but they'll never leave us behind." In a hidden council chamber, someone finally said what none had dared to before. "This is no rescue mission. This is Earth's way of saying, we are not alone anymore, and neither are you." Once a silent, forgotten world, was now the center of something new. And while the humans still said little, their presence spoke louder than words. Because when Earth arrives, they don't just come to fight, they come to build. They come to remind the stars what unity looks like. And every day more ships were still arriving, because one small voice had dared to ask. In the deep core of the Galactic Council's main chamber, silence was rare, but now it filled the grand hall like thick fog. Giant screens floated in the air, each showing a different angle of view. The once broken planet that had now become the center of every conversation across the stars. What they saw confused them. Humans were not controlling the verb. They weren't making speeches or building armies. They were simply helping, quietly, efficiently, completely. The council had expected weapons. They expected fear. Instead, they saw homes rebuilt, schools reopened, fields replanted, and laughter slowly returning to the streets. And still, more human ships arrived. One counselor leaned forward, his voice sharp. "This is not rescue, this is strategy. They are planting seeds, seeds of loyalty." Another shook her head. "No, this is something different. They are not taking anything. They give, and they ask for nothing." But some didn't believe it. In hidden chambers, voices spoke in private. They must be stopped. One said today, tomorrow, the whole frontier. A decision began to form. Quiet, careful, unspoken, but dangerous. Back on the skies were calm. The humans had finished setting up a global shield grid powered by their own ships. The air was clean again. Small drones helped repair bridges, roads, and communication towers. But perhaps most surprising of all, humans began leaving. Not all, but some. They had come, done what they promised, and now were stepping back. Not as rulers, but as visitors. Friends. Raul, the Virulon teacher, stood with one of the departing engineers. "You're not staying?" he asked, confused. The engineer smiled, his skin weathered by many worlds. "We stay where we're needed, not where we're worshipped." But what if the attackers return? They won't. They saw who came for you, and they know now. You're not alone anymore. High above, aboard a council surveillance vessel hidden near Virulon's orbit, tension was rising. Their job was to observe. Nothing more. But what they had seen had shaken them. One junior officer whispered, "They've done more in 7 days than we've done in 7 years. His commander didn't respond, just stared at the screen showing children playing in newly repaired streets, humans teaching Virulon how to grow earth crops in alien soil, and laughter echoing from places once filled with fear. The commander finally spoke. "This is going to change everything." Meanwhile, on a different world, far from the council's reach, another species watched the events unfold. The Tulari were a reclusive race, quiet observers of the galactic stage. They had stayed out of most political matters. But now, one of their elders called a meeting. Earth responded, he said, not with force, but with presence. Another elder nodded slowly. "Perhaps it's time we do the same." And so the signal was sent, not just to Earth, but to anyone who had ever been helped by them. Across the stars, in hidden colonies and distant trade ports, old stories were being remembered. The ship that saved a refugee station, the doctor who stayed behind in a plague zone, the teacher who crossed space to rebuild a lost school. And one by one, other fleets began to stir. Back on Virulon, the humans who remained noticed the change. They saw more signals in orbit, more ships watching, some council, some unknown. The first human, the silent one, the one who arrived alone in the beginning, stood atop the same ridge where he had landed. A voice crackled through his communicator. "They're watching you." "I know," he replied. "They're afraid they should be." Another pause, then a quiet question. "What do we do now?" His answer was calm. "We keep building. That's how they know we're serious." Down in the city, a large screen lit up in the rebuilt square. It was an open channel from Earth to the stars. Anyone could see it. The human ambassador stood in front of a plain backdrop. No flag, no title, just a message. "We don't come to lead. We don't come to rule. We come because you asked. And when you ask, we listen." The message spread fast. In council halls, on merchant ships, in mining colonies, In hidden outposts, beings of every kind watched it, and some of them began to wonder, what would happen if we asked, too? Because now they knew something no one could ignore. Anymore. Earth wasn't trying to take over the galaxy. They were simply reminding it what unity looked like, and the galaxy had forgotten for far too long. More ships were arriving, not in attack, not in fear, but in curiosity, in trust, in hope. Virelin had become the light, and Earth was the spark. Asterisk, the story of Virelin had spread across the stars, not through official broadcasts or polished council statements, but through whispers, shared recordings, and stories told in low voices at spaceports and crowded trade stations. No one could explain it clearly. The facts were simple, but the meaning behind them was something deeper. A small planet had asked for help. The Galactic Council ignored them. Earth did not. And now, everything was changing. A single video, taken by a Virelon child using a borrowed human datapad, was watched by over 1 billion beings across the galaxy. It showed a human engineer kneeling beside a damaged water well, working without rest while the local children sang around him. He didn't speak their language. He didn't seem to understand the song, but he smiled anyway and kept working. He never looked at the camera, never asked for thanks. The caption under the video read, "He fixed everything." Then he left without saying goodbye. People didn't scroll past that video. They watched it again and again. Why? Because it showed something rare, a kind of help that asked for nothing in return. On distant worlds, debates started. Some called it Earth's plan to rise in power. Others said it was just kindness. But the ones who had once been helped by humans didn't need to guess. They already knew. Earth had always remembered what it meant to be alone. On Earth itself, the people didn't see themselves as heroes. In quiet command centers and old colony ships, volunteers packed supplies. Engineers studied alien terrain. Maps, doctors translated notes into alien dialects. The orders were clear, but never shouted. Prepare for departure. Another call has come. Back on Virelin, the people no longer looked at humans with fear or awe. They looked at them like neighbors, friends, partners, together. They were planting crops side by side. They were repairing schools, restoring old songs, teaching each other stories. But what touched the galaxy even more was what Earth didn't do. They didn't build statues of themselves. They didn't demand the Virelon change their ways. They didn't rename cities or build walls. Asterisk. Instead, they helped rebuild the Virelon Library, a building full of the planet's history, art, and old forgotten language. When asked why, a human simply replied, "Because your history matters too." And slowly, the people who had once been terrified began to feel something powerful, pride. One child, the same one who recorded the engineer by the well, was asked by a galactic reporter what the humans had really done for them. She didn't list food or safety or machines. She only said, "They made us feel like we belonged again." That answer spread faster than any report the council ever released. In council space, the shift could be felt like a storm forming in slow motion. More worlds were now sending messages directly to Earth, not to the council, asking for help, advice, even friendship. The council leaders met behind closed doors. "They're not forcing this." One said, "They don't have to," replied another, "The galaxy is choosing." A quiet moment followed. Then someone asked, "What does Earth want?" No one had an answer. Back in orbit above Virelon, the first human ship, the one that had arrived before all others, still floated like a shadow in the stars. The human inside sat alone in the command seat, reading new messages arriving from across the galaxy. Some were calls for help. Others were simple thank yous. One just said, "We see you." He didn't reply to them all. He just forwarded them to Earth's relay station. In a quiet chamber below. On the surface, the people of Virelin had built something unexpected, a hall not for humans, not for leaders, but for voices. It was a place where stories from all species could be shared, stored, and passed on. Humans had helped construct it, but they never claimed it. "We only built the walls," one said. "The stories belong to you." This gesture touched many, because Earth, in its quiet way, was showing something no power ever had, that they were here not to take, but to give, that they were strong but not loud, that they had the ability to lead but chose to walk beside instead. And so, more fleets prepared to leave from Earth and its colonies. Not fleets of soldiers, but of builders, healers, teachers, translators. Because Earth understood something very old, yet often forgotten. Sometimes, to truly be powerful, is to use your strength in service of others. And across the stars, the message was spreading in a new way, not by force, not by control, but by example. One small planet had asked for help. Earth came, and now, the galaxy was following. Asterisk. It began with silence, the kind of silence that comes just before something great begins. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from the council's polished halls and well-guarded decisions, something new was unfolding. Not an empire, not a war, but a movement. Virelin, once a forgotten and broken world, had become the center of something that no one, not even Earth, had planned for. But started as a single call for help, had become a spark. One message, one reply, one human. Then, one ship, then many. But what followed could not be counted in ships or supplies. It was seen in how people began to think and how they began to hope again. Other worlds had watched from the shadows. Some had once tried calling for help from the council, but no reply ever came. Others had been too afraid to ask at all. But now, they had seen the truth that Earth listened. And more importantly, Earth remembered. One by one, messages poured into Earth's communication relays. We need help rebuilding our atmosphere. Our water system collapsed years ago. Our schools are empty. Can you send teachers? We have no one left to speak our old language. Can you help us? Remember it. And Earth, still quiet, still steady, replied the same way it always had. Send coordinates. We are coming. But something had changed. This time, Earth wasn't coming alone. Ships began launching from colonies Earth hadn't visited in years, colonies built by humans, but now home to hundreds of species. The people on those worlds had once been helped by Earth now. They were the ones helping others. Medical fleets left from Artemis's prime. Agricultural cruisers rose from the green skies of Avalon 4. Even deep space archive ships began to move, carrying ancient knowledge to places that had long forgotten their pasts. They didn't come as soldiers. They came as neighbors. The Galactic Council tried to contain it. They called emergency sessions. They debated new laws. They warned of uncontrolled aid and cultural imbalance. But no one listened, because by now, even council members were asking their assistants, in secret, how to send a message to Earth. On Virulon, the sky was filled with lights once again, but this time, they weren't only human. Ships of all kinds hovered peacefully above the planet, Tulari gliders, Draenari spinners, even a few ancient Skarn vessels. Species that once hid from the galaxy now flew proudly with Earth's mark beside their own. They weren't coming to be saved. They were coming because they remembered being heard. In the heart of the city, the one silent hall of stories now pulsed with voices. Languages once forgotten were spoken again. Songs from lost worlds were sung, and standing among them were humans. Listening, not leading, not speaking. First, but listening. A small Virulon boy walked through the hall with a translator sphere, recording everything he heard. Why are you doing that? A human technician asked. The boy smiled. Because I want to make sure no voice gets lost again. In space, just beyond the orbit of Virulon, the first human ship still remained. The captain, quiet as ever, looked at the growing traffic across the stars. So many fleets, his co-pilot whispered. He nodded. Yes, and none of them were ordered. They came on their own. What do we call this? The captain didn't answer right away. He watched as a small medical shuttle passed by, its side painted not just with Earth's symbol, but Virulon's as well. Then he replied, we call it the Answer. Back on Earth, there were no parades, no news anchors shouting about victory, just quiet pride. Workers repacked aid crates. Pilots checked route maps. Children wrote messages for planets they'd never seen, drawing stars and ships with smiling faces. In a single broadcast, shared across every colony, Earth said, we didn't plan this. We didn't ask for it. But if others wish to build something better, not controlled, not ruled, but shared, then we will walk with them, not ahead of them, with them. And so the galaxy began to shift. Slowly, like light spreading across a dark sky, worlds that had never spoken began sharing ideas. Stations that once competed for resources began trading fairly. Languages long erased began to reappear on signs and screens. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fast. But it was happening, because someone had dared to ask for help. And Earth had dared to answer. Now, fleets from every corner of the galaxy were coming, not because Earth ordered them, but because Earth reminded them that being powerful is not about being feared, it's about being remembered, and answering when someone needs you now. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was no longer just a map of stars. It was becoming something else entirely, a community.